The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, complete with a selfie that made my blood freeze in my veins. My wife Marta, grinning like she'd just won the lottery, sprawled across silk sheets that definitely weren't ours. The caption read, "Some trust, some don't." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Colin Mercer, 44 years old, high school gym teacher, and apparently the world's biggest idiot. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and countless arguments about whose turn it was to take out the garbage. All of it reduced to a smugly captioned selfie from my wife's lover's bed. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a FaceTime call. Against every instinct screaming at me to throw the device against the wall, I answered. "Hey, babe." Marta's face filled the screen, her makeup smudged but her smile bright. Behind her, I could see expensive artwork on the walls and hear a man's laughter. "Just wanted to check in?" "Check in," I repeated slowly, my voice surprisingly steady. "From Alex Drayton's bedroom." Her grin widened. "Oh, you got my selfie. Isn't his place amazing? The thread count on these sheets is incredible." More masculine laughter from the background. Then Alex's voice, smooth and confident. "Tell Colin I said thanks for sharing." I felt something cold settle in my chest, replacing the initial shock. It wasn't rage yet. That would come later. This was something else entirely. Something calculating. "You know what, Marta? You're absolutely right about trust." She blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. What? "Some people trust. Some people don't. And some people learn." I ended the call. My daughter Zoe appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair messy from sleep. At 15, she had inherited my sarcastic streak and her mother's sharp intelligence. A dangerous combination. "Dad, you okay? You look like someone just told you Santa isn't real." "Worse," I said, setting the phone face down on the counter. "I just found out your mother is redefining the concept of open marriage." Zoe's expression shifted from sleepy confusion to understanding, then to anger. "Mom's cheating." "Your mother is exploring new interpretations of our wedding vows." That's the most dad way to say, "Yes, she's cheating," I've ever heard. Zoe grabbed a glass from the cabinet and filled it with water. "What are you going to do?" That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? The old Colin would have probably gone to the gym, punched a heavy bag until his knuckles bled, then tried to have a rational conversation about marriage counseling. The old Colin believed in working things out, in the sanctity of family, in doing the right thing, but the old Colin had never received a selfie like that. "I'm going to think about it," I said finally. The next morning brought a text from Marta. "Had to stay over. Client emergency. Home later. Love you." Client emergency. Right. Because nothing says professional crisis like Egyptian cotton sheets and champagne. I was grading papers in the faculty lounge when my phone rang. Ray Morrison, my old army buddy and the closest thing I had to a best friend, was calling from his construction site. "You sound like shit," he said without preamble. "Good morning to you too, sunshine." "Seriously, what's wrong? You've got that tone." Ray had known me for 15 years. We'd served together overseas, shared foxholes and bad MREs, and the kind of trust that only comes from watching someone's back in hostile territory. If anyone could hear trouble in my voice, it was him. "Marta's having an affair." Silence. Then, "You sure?" She sent me a selfie from his bed, with commentary. "Jesus Christ, who's the guy?" "Alex Drayton. Owns that luxury car dealership on 5th Street. Rich, smooth, probably has a wine cellar and uses words like summer as a verb. What are you going to do?" Everyone kept asking me that. What was I going to do? The responsible answer was counseling, separation, lawyers, dividing assets, explaining to our son Ethan why Mommy and Daddy weren't living together anymore when he came home from college for Christmas. But I kept thinking about that laughter in the background, about Alex's voice. "Tell Colin I said thanks for sharing." "I'm going to figure some things out," I told Ray. That afternoon, I drove past Alex's dealership. Drayton Luxury Motors occupied a gleaming showroom on the expensive side of town, all glass and chrome and cars that cost more than I made in 2 years. Through the windows, I could see Alex himself, tall, perfectly groomed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He was talking to a young couple, gesturing at a red sports car with the enthusiasm of a man who genuinely loved separating people from their money. Everything about him screamed success, confidence, the kind of guy who always got what he wanted, including other men's wives. My phone buzzed. Another text from Marta. "Working late again. Don't wait up." Working late? Sure. I wondered if Alex had taught her that euphemism, or if she'd come up with it on her own. I drove home to find Zoe in the kitchen, her laptop open on the counter, homework spread around her like a paper explosion. Mom texted, she said without looking up. She's working late again. She made air quotes with obvious disdain. Your mother is very dedicated to her career. Her career in adultery? Zoe. What? I'm 15, not 5. I know what's going on. She closed her laptop and fixed me with a stare that was uncomfortably perceptive. The question is, what are you going to do about it? There it was again. That question. But this time, looking at my daughter's angry, protective expression, I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been building since that first selfie, growing stronger with each lie, each casual betrayal. I'm going to handle it, I said. Handle it how? I thought about Alex's laughter, about Marta's smug grin, about 22 years of marriage reduced to a caption. Some trust, some don't. I'm going to teach them about consequences. The first rule of warfare, and make no mistake, this was war now, is intelligence gathering. Know your enemy, understand their weaknesses, find their pressure points. Lucky for me, my enemy was an idiot. It took exactly 3 days of casual observation to learn Alex Drayton's routine. Coffee at Starbucks every morning at 7:15, always ordering some complicated drink that required the barista to write a novel on the cup. Lunch at Romano's on Wednesdays with business associates. Gym sessions at Elite Fitness on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where he spent more time checking himself out in the mirrors than actually exercising. And Friday nights? Friday nights he had standing reservations at the Grandview Hotel's penthouse suite. You're being creepy, Zoe informed me over dinner, like serial killer levels of creepy. I prefer thorough, I said, cutting into my steak. Your mother always said I lacked attention to detail. She also said you were too trusting. Well, we're fixing that problem, aren't we? Zoe pushed food around her plate, suddenly looking younger than her 15 years. Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hung in the air like smoke. I set down my fork and really looked at my daughter, this sharp, funny, fierce kid who deserved better than parents who communicated through lies and selfies. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but whatever happens, it won't be your fault, and you'll be okay. I promise. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Another thing to add to Alex and Marta's tab. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Hey, honey. Marta's voice was bright and cheerful. How was your day? Educational. How was yours? Oh, the usual chaos. Listen, I'm going to be late again tonight. Big client presentation tomorrow, and we're still fine-tuning the campaign. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Buckner walking her ancient poodle. Our neighbor was the neighborhood's unofficial information network, a sweet old lady with the observational skills of a CIA operative and the discretion of a gossip columnist. Which client? I asked. What? Which client? The presentation. A pause. Just a heartbeat, but I caught it. Drayton Motors? They're launching a new luxury line. Ah, Alex Drayton. You know him? I know of him. Seems like a real hands-on businessman. He is. Very involved in every aspect of his business. I'll bet he is. Well, don't work too hard, I said. Wouldn't want you to strain anything important. After she hung up, Zoe raised an eyebrow. You're getting scary good at this whole passive-aggressive thing. I'm a teacher. Passive aggression is a required skill. That night, I did something I'd never done in 22 years of marriage. I went through Marta's home office. Her laptop was password protected, but Marta had never been particularly creative with security. Her password was Ethan 2006, our son's name and birth year. The same password she'd used for everything since he was born. Her email was a goldmine of casual betrayal. Not just the affair, though there was plenty of evidence of that, but the attitude behind it. Messages to her sister Vicky, laughing about my trust issues, conversations with her work friend Jake about how clueless I was, screenshots of our text conversations shared with her friends for their amusement. But the real prize was a group chat called Girls' Night. Marta, Vicky, and 3 other women I barely knew. The conversation history read like a masterclass in casual cruelty. Marta. Colin actually asked me to be home for dinner tonight. Like, seriously? Vicky. What did you tell him? Marta. Client meeting. He's too dull to question it. Friend 1. You're terrible. Marta. He's just so predictable. Alex says I deserve better. Vicky. Alex is right. You should just leave him. Marta. And give up half of everything? Please, I'm not stupid. I screenshot everything, every conversation, every casual insult, every laugh at my expense. 22 years of marriage, and this was what I'd become to her, a punchline and a paycheck. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your wife's car tomorrow morning. Trust me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. But I made a mental note. The next morning, Marta's car was parked in the driveway as usual. She'd come home sometime after midnight, slipping into bed like a ghost. I'd pretended to be asleep, listening to her careful movements in the dark. Now, in the gray morning light, I walked around her Honda Civic with new eyes. The car looked normal enough, but when I knelt down by the driver's side, I found what the anonymous texter had wanted me to see. A small device, no bigger than a matchbox, attached to the underside of the car with magnetic clips. A GPS tracker. Someone else was watching my wife. I left the device where it was and went inside to make coffee. Marta appeared 20 minutes later, already dressed for work in one of her power suits. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my cheek with the casual affection of a woman with nothing to hide. "I'll probably be late again tonight. This Drayton campaign is really heating up." "I'm sure it is." She grabbed her coffee and headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, I almost forgot. Vicky's having a little get-together this weekend, girls only. I told her I'd be there." "Of course you did." "What's that supposed to mean?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with in college, who'd worn my army jacket to football games and cried when I deployed. The woman who'd held my hand during both kids' births and laughed at my terrible jokes for 2 decades. When had she become this stranger? "Nothing," I said. "Have fun with the girls." She left, and I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about GPS trackers and anonymous tips and the careful way my wife moved through our house like she was already gone. My phone rang. Ray. "You sound better," he said. "I'm getting clarity." "That's what I'm afraid of. What are you planning, Colin?" "I'm planning to stop being predictable." At school that day, I taught my classes with unusual energy. Physical education wasn't exactly rocket science, but I'd always tried to make it engaging. Today, I found myself talking to my students about strategy, about the importance of understanding your opponent, about the difference between reaction and response. When someone comes at you, I told my 5th period class, your first instinct is to react. React emotionally, react immediately, react without thinking. But champions respond. They take the hit, they assess the situation, they plan their counterattack. One of my students, a smart-mouthed kid named Tyler, raised his hand. "What if someone sucker punches you, coach? Sometimes you gotta hit back right away." "Sometimes," I agreed. "But the best revenge is making sure they regret throwing that punch in the first place." After school, I drove to Elite Fitness. Alex's BMW was in the parking lot, sleek and black and expensive. Through the windows, I could see him on the bench press, surrounded by the kind of gym equipment that costs more than most people's cars. I didn't go in. Instead, I sat in my truck and watched him work out, noting his routine, his habits, the way he interacted with other gym members. Alex Drayton was a creature of routine, comfortable in his success, confident in his invincibility. That was going to change? My phone buzzed with a text from Marta. "Working late again. Sorry. Love you." I typed back, "Love you too. Work hard." Then I drove to the hardware store. The beauty of being a gym teacher is that people underestimate you. They see the whistle, the tracksuit, the endless parade of teenagers who think dodgeball is the height of physical torture, and they assume you're some kind of intellectual lightweight. They forget that teaching requires strategy, patience, and the ability to manage chaos while maintaining complete control. They forget that some gym teachers are former military, trained in tactics and psychological warfare. They forget that we know how to plan. I spent the weekend in my garage, which had become my unofficial war room. On the workbench, I'd spread out everything I'd gathered. Screenshots of Marta's group chats, photos of Alex's routine, a detailed schedule of their meetings, and a growing list of everyone who knew about the affair and found it amusing. Zoe appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cans of Coke. "You know this is insane, right?" she said, handing me a drink. "Define insane." Sitting in the garage like some kind of revenge Batman, plotting against Mom and her boyfriend. I took a sip of Coke and studied my daughter. "Are you going to turn me in?" She was quiet for a long moment, then pulled up a folding chair next to mine. "Oh, what do you need me to do?" "That's my girl?" "I need you to be careful," I said, "and I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "Dad, I've been watching Mom lie to your face for weeks. I've been watching her friends laugh about it, watching her sister encourage it, watching everyone treat you like you're too stupid to notice. So yeah, I trust you, and I want to help. It might get ugly. It's already ugly. At least this way, maybe it gets fair. Monday morning brought the first phase of my education campaign. I'd spent Sunday night creating several anonymous email accounts and gathering contact information for key players in Alex's business network. The email was simple, professional, and devastating. Dear Mr. Patterson, you may be interested to know that your business partner, Alex Drayton, has been conducting personal affairs during business hours, using company resources to facilitate relationships with married clients. I've attached photographic evidence for your review, a concerned observer. I sent similar emails to 3 of Alex's major business partners, his landlord, and the president of the Chamber of Commerce. The photos were carefully cropped versions of Marta's selfies, showing enough to tell the story without being explicitly pornographic. Within an hour, my phone rang. Ray, please tell me you're not doing anything stupid. Define stupid. Colin, I'm serious. Whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything illegal, I said. I'm just sharing information. Isn't that what social media is for? This isn't social media. This is consequences, I interrupted. For 22 years, I played by the rules. I was faithful, honest, trusting, predictable. And you know what it got me? A wife who sends selfies from her lover's bed and a group of people who think I'm too stupid to notice. Ray was quiet for a moment. What do you want me to do? Be ready to help me move some furniture this weekend. Move furniture? Marta's going to her sister's place for the weekend. Girls' trip. I figure that's a good time to redecorate. Tuesday afternoon, I got my first confirmation that the emails had landed. Alex's BMW wasn't at the gym. Instead, I spotted it parked outside a coffee shop downtown, where Alex was having what looked like an intense conversation with an older man in an expensive suit. Even from across the street, I could see the tension in Alex's posture. His usual confident swagger was gone, replaced by defensive hand gestures and the kind of forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Phase 1. Successful. That evening, Marta came home in an unusually good mood. How was work? I asked, not looking up from the papers I was grading. Great, really great. Alex says the campaign is really coming together. I'm sure it is. How is Alex, by the way? He seemed a little stressed when I saw him today. She paused in the act of opening the refrigerator. You saw him today? Downtown. He was having coffee with some guy in a suit. Looked like a serious conversation. Oh, well, business, you know. Always something. Always something, I agreed. Wednesday brought phase 2. I'd spent Tuesday evening creating a fake social media profile, complete with stock photos and a believable backstory, and using it to join several local Facebook groups, the Grandview Business Network, the Downtown Merchants Association, and my personal favorite, Grandview Gossip. The post was carefully crafted. Ladies, be careful out there. Just found out my husband's business partner has been having affairs with married clients, using the business to facilitate his little rendezvous. Some of these men have no shame. Cheaters, business ethics, Grandview, gossip. I didn't mention names, didn't have to. In a town this size, people would figure it out quickly enough. By Thursday morning, the post had 43 comments and had been shared 16 times. The comments ranged from outraged support to requests for more details to speculation about which business and which men might be involved. My favorite comment came from someone named Linda Grandview. I bet it's that car dealer on 5th Street. My friend works at the hotel and says he's there every Friday with a different woman. Disgusting. Sometimes the internet is a beautiful thing. Thursday evening, Marta was unusually quiet during dinner. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, just tired. Work stress? Something like that. Zoe looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. Maybe you should take a vacation, Mom. You seem really tense lately. Marta's smile was strained. Maybe after this campaign wraps up. When will that be? I asked. Soon, I hope. Friday morning, I implemented phase 3. I'd been saving this one, waiting for the right moment. The anonymous tip about the GPS tracker had given me an idea. If someone else was tracking Marta's movements, they probably had information I could use. More importantly, they might be willing to share it. I composed a careful email to the anonymous tipster. Thank you for the information about the tracking device. I found it. I'm wondering if you might have other information that would be helpful. I'm not looking to cause trouble, just trying to understand the full situation. The response came within an hour. Meet me at Romano's restaurant today at 2 p.m. I'll be wearing a red jacket. Come alone. Romano's was busy for a Friday afternoon, filled with the lunch crowd and early dinner customers. I spotted the red jacket immediately, a woman in her 30s, sitting alone at a corner table, nervously checking her phone. Are you Colin? She asked as I approached. I nodded and sat down. She was pretty in an understated way, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I work at Drayton Motors, in accounting." "You're the one who's been tracking my wife." She shook her head. "Not tracking, documenting. There's a difference." "Documenting for what?" Sarah glanced around the restaurant, then leaned forward. "Alex has been using company resources for his personal affairs. Company car, company credit cards, even company time. He's been doing it for years, but lately it's gotten worse." "Why do you care?" "Because I'm the one who has to make the books balance. I'm the one who has to explain to the partners why there are mysterious charges for hotel rooms and expensive dinners. And I'm the one who's going to get fired when they figure out what's been going on." I studied her face. "You want him gone?" "I want him held accountable. He thinks he's untouchable because he brings in business, but he's been stealing from the company to fund his lifestyle. The affairs are just part of it." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything's in there. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, even some photos from the hotel's security cameras. I've been collecting evidence for months." "Why give this to me?" "Because you're the one person who has as much reason to hate him as I do, and because I think you'll actually do something with it." I opened the envelope and glanced through the contents. It was damning. Months of documented affairs, financial irregularities, and abuse of company resources. Alex Drayton wasn't just a cheater, he was a thief. "What do you want in return?" I asked. "I want to keep my job when this all comes out, and I want to watch him fall." "That can be arranged." That evening, Marta packed her bag for the weekend trip to Vicky's. She was excited, humming while she folded clothes and chatted about spa treatments and girl time. "You sure you'll be okay?" she asked, zipping up her suitcase. "I'll be fine. Zoe and I will probably just order pizza and watch movies." "Sounds perfect." She kissed my cheek, the same casual affection that had become her trademark. "I love you." "I love you too," I said, and meant it. I loved the woman she used to be, the woman I'd married, the woman who'd disappeared somewhere along the way. But I was done being married to the woman she'd become. After she left, I called Ray. "Time to move that furniture?" "On my way." While we waited for Ray, Zoe helped me carry boxes up from the basement, boxes that had been in storage for years, filled with things I'd forgotten we owned. "What exactly are we doing?" she asked. "We're redecorating. Your mother always said this place needed a woman's touch. I figure it's time to see what it looks like with a different woman's touch." "Whose touch?" "Mine." Ray arrived with his truck and 2 of his crew members. By midnight, we'd moved every piece of furniture that belonged to Marta into the garage. Her clothes, her books, her decorations, her personal items, everything that made the house feel like hers. What remained was clean, sparse, and undeniably mine. "You sure about this?" Ray asked as we finished. "I'm sure." "She's going to lose her mind when she gets back." "That's the idea." Sunday evening, I sat in my newly arranged living room, waiting. Zoe was upstairs, presumably doing homework, but probably listening for the sound of her mother's car in the driveway. At 8:47 p.m., I heard it. The Honda pulling into the driveway, the car door slamming, footsteps on the front porch. The key turned in the lock, and Marta walked into a house that no longer belonged to her. The silence stretched for a full 30 seconds. Marta stood in the doorway, her weekend bag dropping from her hand to the floor with a soft thud. She looked around the living room, my living room now, taking in the absence of her furniture, her decorations, her entire presence. "Colin?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "What happened here?" I looked up from the book I was reading, as if I'd just noticed her return. "Hey, how was your weekend?" "Where's all my stuff?" "Your stuff? Oh, I moved it. Thought you might want to take it with you." "Take it where?" I set down my book and really looked at her. Even confused and obviously rattled, she was still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with 22 years ago. But beauty without loyalty is just decoration, and I was done decorating my life with lies. "Wherever you're going next," I said calmly. "I assume you've been making plans." She moved further into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor that was no longer muffled by her expensive rugs. "Colin, what is this? What's going on?" This is me being less predictable. "I don't understand." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the screenshots I'd taken from her group chat. "Let me help you understand. Colin actually asked me to be home for dinner tonight. Like, seriously." Her face went pale. "He's too dull to question it," I continued. "Alex says I deserve better. Oh, and my personal favorite, and give up half of everything, please, I'm not stupid." Marta sank into the one chair I'd left in the room. My chair, my space. "Colin, I can explain." Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation for this. I held up my phone, showing her own selfie from Alex's bed. Some trust, some don't. Remember that caption? How did you get your private messages? The same way you've been sharing our private conversations with your friends. Technology is amazing, isn't it? She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her, no desire to make this easier. Those emotions had died somewhere between the selfie and the laughter, between the lies and the casual cruelty of being treated like a fool. Where's my stuff? She whispered. In the garage. Ray helped me move it. Nice guy, Ray. Loyal. You remember loyalty, right? It's that old-fashioned concept where people don't betray the people they claim to love. Colin, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... No! The word hung in the air like a gunshot. No? She repeated. No counseling. No working it out. No pretending this is something we can fix with communication and compromise. You made your choice when you sent me that selfie. You made your choice when you laughed about me with your friends. You made your choice when you decided I was too dull and predictable to deserve basic respect. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where we'd lived for 15 years, where we'd raised our children, hosted barbecues, pretended to be happy. I know about the hotel receipts, I said without turning around. I know about the company credit cards. I know about all of it, Marta. What do you want? Now I turned to face her. I want you to leave. This is my house, too. Is it? Because according to your group chat, you've been planning to leave anyway. You just wanted to make sure you got half of everything first. Well, here's the thing about that plan. It only works if I don't know about it. She stood up, anger replacing tears. You can't just throw me out. I have rights. You do. You have the right to call a lawyer. You have the right to find somewhere else to sleep tonight. You have the right to explain to our children why their family is falling apart. Our children? What about Ethan? What about Zoe? Ethan's at college. He'll be fine. And Zoe? I paused, hearing footsteps on the stairs. Why don't you ask her yourself? Zoe appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of teenage contempt that would have been impressive if it weren't so heartbreaking. Ask me what? She said. Marta turned to her daughter with desperate hope. Zoe, honey, your father is being unreasonable. We can work this out as a family. You mean the family you've been laughing about with Aunt Vicky? Zoe's voice was ice. The family you've been betraying for months? That family? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a cheater and a liar, and you got caught. Now you want everyone to feel sorry for you and pretend it didn't happen. Marta looked between us, finally understanding that this wasn't a momentary anger that could be smoothed over with tears and promises. This was a reckoning years in the making. Where am I supposed to go? You could try Alex's place, I suggested. I hear the thread count on his sheets is incredible. I can't just show up there? Why not? You've been showing up there for months. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. Actually, you might want to call first. Alex has been having some business troubles lately. Something about misusing company resources and affairs with clients. Very unprofessional. Her eyes widened. You didn't. I didn't do anything. I just shared some information with interested parties. Amazing how quickly word spreads in a small town. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger, and maybe she was. The predictable, trusting, dull Colin was gone. In his place stood someone who had learned the difference between being nice and being respected. This isn't you, she said quietly. No, it's not. The old me would have tried to save our marriage, would have gone to counseling and worked on communication and pretended that trust could be rebuilt from lies. But the old me never got a selfie from his wife's lover's bed. I walked to the front door and opened it. Your stuff is in the garage. Take what you can carry tonight. We'll figure out the rest through lawyers. She didn't move for a long moment, then slowly picked up her weekend bag. I never meant for it to happen like this, she said. Yes, you did. You meant for it to happen exactly like this. Except you thought I'd be too stupid to figure it out. The only thing you didn't plan on was getting caught. She walked to the door, then turned back. What about us? 22 years, Colin. Doesn't that mean anything? I thought about our wedding day, about the promises we'd made, about the life we'd built together. I thought about Ethan's first steps and Zoe's first words and 1,000 small moments that had made up our marriage. It meant everything, I said. That's why this hurts so much. She left, and I closed the door behind her. Zoe appeared at my side, slipping her hand into mine. You okay, Dad? I will be. We stood there for a moment, listening to the sound of her car starting, pulling out of the driveway, disappearing into the night. "What happens now?" Zoe asked. "Now we figure out what our life looks like without her. Will it be better?" I squeezed her hand. "It'll be honest. And after 22 years of lies, honest feels pretty good." 3 weeks later, I was grading papers in my office when Principal Martinez knocked on my door. "Colin, you have visitors?" I looked up to see two people I recognized but had never actually met. Alex Drayton and Vicky, Marta's sister. Alex looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. His usual polished appearance was replaced by wrinkled clothes and the kind of stubble that suggested he'd stopped caring about his image. Vicky looked angry enough to bite through steel. "We need to talk," Vicky said without preamble. "Do we? Because I can't think of anything we have to discuss." "You destroyed his business," she continued, gesturing at Alex. "You cost him his partnerships, his reputation, everything." I set down my pen and leaned back in my chair. I shared factual information with interested parties. If that destroyed his business, maybe the problem wasn't the information. Alex finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "You have no idea what you've done." "I have a pretty good idea. I've ended your ability to steal from your company and cheat with your clients' wives. You're welcome." "This isn't over," Vicky said. "Actually, it is." I stood up and walked around my desk, stopping just close enough to make them both uncomfortable. "See, here's what you don't understand. I'm not the same person I was a month ago. I'm not the predictable, trusting, dull Colin who let people walk all over him. I'm the Colin who fights back." I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. Alex's BMW parked outside the Grandview Hotel with a clear timestamp showing it was during business hours on a Tuesday afternoon. I have dozens of these. Photos, receipts, credit card statements, hotel records, everything you've done, everywhere you've been, every lie you've told, and I've shared it all with the appropriate people. Alex's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Ask your business partners. Ask your wife. Ask the IRS. They were very interested in your creative expense reporting." Vicky stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so much better than everyone else?" "No, I think I'm better than people who cheat and lie and steal, but that's a pretty low bar." "Marta loved you," she continued. "She made one mistake." "One mistake?" I laughed, and the sound was cold enough to make them both flinch. "She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. Every selfie, every lie, every night she spent in his bed was a choice. Every time she laughed about me with you was a choice. Every time she used our marriage as a punchline was a choice." I walked back to my desk and sat down, dismissing them with my posture. "Now you can make a choice. You can leave my office, leave my school, and leave me alone. Or you can keep pushing, and I can show you exactly how much information I have about both of you." They left without another word. That evening, I was making dinner when Zoe came home from school with news. "Mom called," she said, dropping her backpack by the door. "What did she want?" "To talk, to explain, to tell me her side of the story." Zoe grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl and bit into it. "I told her I already knew her side of the story. It's the side where she cheats on her husband and laughs about it with her friends." "What did she say to that?" She cried. "A lot. Then she said Alex broke up with her." I paused in the act of stirring the pasta sauce. Did she now? Apparently, his business is falling apart, and his wife is divorcing him, and he decided Mom was too much drama. Zoe's voice was matter of fact, but I could hear the hurt underneath. She wanted to know if she could come home. "What did you tell her?" "I told her this is home. She's just a visitor now." "My daughter, the philosopher." "How do you feel about that?" I asked. Zoe was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Sad, angry, relieved, all at the same time. That's normal? Is it normal that I don't want her to come back?" I turned to face her, this fierce, intelligent young woman who'd been forced to grow up too fast because of her mother's choices. "It's normal to want to protect yourself from people who hurt you," I said, "even if those people are family." "Especially if they're family," she corrected. 2 months later, the divorce was final. Marta got half of our assets, as expected, but it was half of significantly less than she'd hoped for. Turns out that when you're planning to leave anyway, you don't get to claim emotional damages. She moved to an apartment across town and got a job at a smaller ad agency. Alex's business folded entirely, and he left town owing money to half the people he'd ever met. Vicky stopped speaking to me, which was honestly a relief. I kept the house, got primary custody of Zoe, and discovered something interesting. I liked my life better without the constant undercurrent of lies and disrespect. On a Friday evening in late spring, I was grilling burgers in the backyard when Ray stopped by with a 6-pack of beer. "You look good," he said, settling into one of the lawn chairs I'd bought to replace Marta's expensive patio furniture. "I feel good. No regrets?" I thought about it, watching Zoe and her friend Emma playing with the neighbor's dog in the yard. "I regret that it took me so long to stand up for myself," I said finally. "I regret that I let her treat me like that for as long as I did. I regret that our kids had to see their family fall apart." "But you don't regret fighting back?" "No, I don't regret that at all." Ray nodded and took a sip of his beer. "You know what the funny thing is? She probably thought she was so clever, keeping you in the dark while she had her fun. She probably thought you'd never figure it out. I thought I was predictable. Were you?" I flipped the burgers and considered the question. Yeah, I was. Predictably loyal, predictably trusting, predictably willing to put my family first. But you know what else I was? What? Predictably thorough when I put my mind to something. Predictably strategic when I needed to be. Predictably dangerous when someone threatened what I cared about. I looked at my daughter, laughing as the dog stole her frisbee, and felt something settle in my chest. Peace, maybe, or just the absence of constant tension. "She forgot that I used to be a soldier," I said. "She forgot that I know how to plan, how to execute, how to win when it matters. And now? Now she knows." The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Zoe came running over, grass stains on her jeans and happiness on her face. "Dad, Emma wants to know if she can stay for dinner." "Of course she can." As the girls ran back to their game, Ray raised his beer in a toast. "To not being predictable," he said. "To being exactly as predictable as I want to be," I corrected. We clinked bottles and watched the sunset. Two old soldiers who'd learned that sometimes the best victory is simply refusing to lose. Later that night, after Emma had gone home and Zoe was upstairs doing homework, I sat in my living room reading. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I heard what happened with Marta and Alex. I'm sorry for your loss." I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "I'm not. Some trust, some don't, and some learn to trust themselves instead." I deleted the conversation and went back to my book. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into its evening routine. Porch lights coming on, families gathering for dinner, the comfortable sounds of ordinary life. It was predictable in the best possible way. I'd learned something important over the past few months. There's a difference between being predictable because you're weak and being predictable because you're strong. Weak predictability comes from fear, from not wanting to rock the boat, from letting people walk all over you because confrontation is uncomfortable. Strong predictability comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. It comes from being the kind of person others can count on, not because you're a pushover, but because your principles don't change based on convenience. Marta had counted on my weakness. She'd bet everything on my being too predictable to fight back, too trusting to see through her lies, too nice to make her face consequences. She'd been wrong about the kind of predictable I was. The next morning brought one final surprise. I was having coffee and reading the newspaper when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Marta standing on my front porch, looking nervous and hopeful. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Colin," she said, her voice soft. "Can we talk?" "We're talking." "I mean really talk. About us. About maybe trying again." I studied her face, looking for some sign of the woman I'd once loved. She was still there, underneath the makeup and the carefully styled hair and the designer clothes she couldn't really afford anymore. "What would you like to talk about?" I asked. "I've been thinking about what you said, about choices, about consequences. You were right, and I was wrong, and I want to make it up to you." "How?" "However you want. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I miss you, Colin. I miss us." I leaned against the doorframe, taking my time with my response. This was the moment I'd imagined a dozen different ways, Marta coming back, apologetic and repentant, asking for another chance. In some of those imagined conversations, I'd taken her back. In others, I'd slammed the door in her face. But now that the moment was actually here, I felt something I hadn't expected. Nothing. No anger, no hurt, no desire for revenge, no love, no longing, no urge to forgive. Just nothing. "I don't miss us," I said finally. "I like who I am without you. I like who Zoe is without you. I like our life better when it doesn't include lies and betrayal and being treated like a fool. People change, Colin. I've changed." "Have you? Or are you just sorry you got caught?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Here's the thing, Marta. You taught me something important. You taught me that I deserve better than someone who thinks I'm too dull to notice when I'm being betrayed. You taught me that I deserve better than someone who shares our private conversations with her friends for entertainment. You taught me that I deserve better than someone who stays married for the money while getting her emotional and physical needs met elsewhere. I straightened up, done with the conversation. Thank you for the lesson, but class is over. I closed the door and went back to my coffee and newspaper. Through the window, I watched her stand on the porch for a few more minutes before finally walking back to her car. Zoe appeared in the kitchen, already dressed for school. Was that Mom? Yeah. What did she want? To try again. What did you tell her? I looked at my daughter, this smart, strong, fierce young woman who deserved to see that people could have standards and stick to them, that self-respect wasn't negotiable, that love without loyalty was just manipulation. I told her that some people trust, some people don't, and some people learn to trust themselves most of all. Zoe nodded and grabbed her backpack. Good answer, Dad. After she left for school, I sat in my quiet kitchen and thought about the past year. About selfies and lies and the moment I'd decided to stop being a victim of other people's choices. It had been a hell of an education, but I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Respect isn't something you can demand or beg for or negotiate. It's something you have to be willing to enforce. And once you start enforcing it, you discover that you need it a lot less from other people because you're finally giving it to yourself. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Beer tonight? I typed back, Absolutely, I'll provide the predictability. And I'll provide the beer, he responded. I smiled and finished my coffee. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Kids walking to school, adults heading to work, the comfortable rhythm of ordinary people living ordinary lives. It was predictable in all the right ways, and for the first time in 22 years, so was I.